You are listening to the Overwatch Rundown, a weekly podcast covering the latest in esports scene of competitive Overwatch. Today is Monday, March 26th, and we are covering the Stage 2 playoffs for Overwatch League. Big surprise this week. 2 episodes. This is the second episode.
You said weekly in your intro.
I did.
Well, this is more than once a week, so he might have to go back and redo that one. He's not going to.
No. It is a weekly podcast though. So listen, it's a special episode. We might be doing this, come every stage finals. We'll see depending how they all go. We can't all expect them to go as well as this stage or stage 1 has gone, but yeah, Monday is a new week, so we got a new podcast.
Yesterday was the second one of the week. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, good points all around. Either way, Jax, if you are interested in the regular season end of stage or end of week 5, we had that in episode 79. We're talking only about the playoffs in this one. No rundown.
I don't know about only because there are a couple things I did want to talk about. First I'm looking at Void having completed his transfer from Chengdu over to Los Angeles Gladiators. Sadly, Void is not a DPS, which I feel the Gladiators need to work on.
Do you think he can fill in the translation shoes of Bishu?
I'm not even sure how much of that is actually needed. I think I was watching Hydration doing the show with Monty and Thorin 2 weeks ago, and he kind of implied that Bishu doesn't do that much anymore, or at least right now.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say time and practice will do away with that. I'm sure at first there is important.
But we'll see, because the thing is, I'm saying well, Fisher might not need it, or Asher might not need it anymore, but Void has been in an all Korean setup forever now that he's been a pro. So is he? Because with Bishu out, then there's no one there to make the translations for him, So I'm wondering how that will work together.
Yeah. Big questions in terms of their lineup and why they're moving people around in the off-tank role versus some of the other weaknesses. We've talked about that a lot.
Perhaps we're wrong. I mean, the coaches, they're the ones being paid to put this team together. So if the people who are being paid feel that things are okay, perhaps you and I, who are not being paid, are the ones that are wrong.
We have seen a huge improvement for them though in stage 2, so you can't deny that.
That's because they decided, okay.
So they made a big move. They made a big move. Jackson paid off. Maybe this move will also pay off in ways that we don't see happening as evident. Like I'm not saying Bishu top off tank player, but I wouldn't say he was the biggest weakness. We've always said that, right? So, if we're talking about what you can upgrade, it seems weird that they'd go after that. All right, Jax, beyond Gladiators, there's some other things going on too.
Los Angeles just full of turmoil. You've got Agilities with the In and Out episode from Inside LA Valiant last week, and I think I mentioned at the end of our podcast yesterday, or maybe it was in the post game, that they had another episode out entitled Coach Moon, which is the new coach that was brought in, and I actually watched that about 20 minutes ago before we started the podcast, and it left me just scratching my head. Because I'm looking at this, and now I have a clear picture. Is that they have a head coach, right, and a translator, because he's Korean, doesn't speak English. So you've got the translator there. Then you've got a French assistant coach. Okay. Then you've got Gumba from Blank, who I had forgotten is also an assistant coach.
Yep.
And then you have Stoop, who was just brought on as an assistant coach. He was also there. So I'm looking like, wow, they're pretty heavy coaching staff, right? And they talk about having problems with sometimes having to converse in 3 different languages, because even though Soon and Unko speak English, it's not their first language. They may not get the subtle nuances that So it's, they use a translator for that. But then Lepalose, I'm watching this and I'm seeing all these coaches here, right? And I'm saying to myself, if you have all these coaches, when Agilities is having his heart-to-heart conversation about his place on the team and his last chance, why is it the owner?
I mean,
Why is it the team owner the one talking to him about this?
good question. Maybe it's that level of seriousness that the
Well,
owner
I mean,
feels like he has to step in. But I think that's a good question.
that's
It's
a
in terms
coach's
of
job, Lepalose.
I absolutely agree. And if not the coaches, then assistant coaching, depending on how like what the interactions are like.
You got
I,
4 assistant coaches and a head coach. What
these
is the
teams
owner
don't even
doing
seem to
there?
have mostly don't seem to have a general manager. They have seemingly owners that like to meddle. At least a few of them teams.
This is see
Noah
you said
Winston, I believe is his name, right?
yeah
He
no
seems to like to meddle on his teams. So
you have that one, Noah Winston, and I get kind of why because of the close relationship he had as the owner of Immortals when
yeah,
Agilities was part of that core Immortals team that transitioned over from Immortals to Valiant. So I kind of get that. It's just at some point I think there does need to be separation. I think the part you mentioned there about not having a general manager is something I'm looking at the Valiant that they need. I don't know, and the reason why I say that because we're looking again at Twitter, and Noah Winston comes out today saying there will be more transparency between now and the beginning of stage 3, and I'm just
wow.
scratching my head like,
When people and I don't think people should listen to uh, Reddit or Twitter about the calls out for transparency on coaching decisions and management issues. I don't think teams and organizations should follow that. Like I believe that's trying to chase something. You can never be transparent enough for your fans, right? Because when you do, then you get scrutinized, and then there's more questions that they want more answers to,
I mean,
which
because
you may
you
not
get
be
the
able
in
to
and
answer.
out
So,
meme that has started now
yeah,
because because of the episode 3 of their show,
I love that meme. But
or
listen, horrible idea.
I
Horrible
take a
idea
look
to do that.
at the Dallas Fuel, right? Who don't have the media presence that the Valiant have. So the Dallas Fuel, all there is, it's not coming out in a nice, tidy package
You
that the
got,
team has put together. It's
yeah,
coming out in individual packages where you have Kai Kai giving an interview on Medium. You have AKM on his Discord and Reddit. And then you have Rascal, was it last night or the night before, on his own personal stream. And, which is then translated for the whole world to see. And I was watching Hardblue last night, and Hardblue's reading this, and he was like, and you know what he said? He says, "Wait, Rascal's not on the team, is he?"
yeah.
And you know why he said that? He's like, "You don't say this." I mean, yeah, we as consumers, as fans, as outside looking in, we love this. We love the insight. We love the drama, even though Overwatch Rundown doesn't cover drama. But from a team perspective, which we do cover here on the Rundown, that's a problem.
Huge impacts
And
on their
I'm
morale for
going
sure.
back, I'm looking at what we just said about, maybe Noah Winston, like, why is he the one giving Agilities a speech? And then I remember Hastro made that tweet 2 weeks ago where he says, the coaching staff now has full control. And Monty was like, didn't they have that before? And he gave, some BS answer. But you know what that means? That means he had his hands in the pie where it shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And, it's just it leaves me scratching my head about how you look at these teams with all this talent, and you like you just ask yourself, why are they doing so bad? And I'm starting to, while I do think Dallas does have problems on all levels, not ownership, coaching, and players. I'm thinking it's the fact that they're all intermixed might be one of the biggest problems there, because there's too much going on. There's too many people,
But Jax,
and
you talk about intermixed squads, and why don't we talk about one of the teams coming into the playoffs?
okay.
We're talking about Fusion. Fusion has a number of nationalities playing for their squad,
They do.
and they managed to find themselves in third place in and get themselves into the semifinals for stage
Solid,
two.
solid come from behind performance. Coming into the final week, they were not in the pole position. That was the Gladiators who choked. They, and Soul Dynasty, who also had the inside track, who
So
also
briefly on
choked.
that point, who do you think choked harder, Dynasty or Gladiators, Jax?
Dynasty, then Gladiators.
All right. I think. Listen, I agree with you. Although I think it's hard to pick. I think Dynasty's choke was pretty bad though. When you talk about
See, the problem is
the lineup
the
they
thing that
brought up, yeah,
the Dynasty choke was of their own doing.
yeah.
The Gladiator choke is also of their own doing, but in a different sense, in that the coaching staff never addressed their DPS problem. They don't have an anti-Widow strat, here's the deal. If they want to stick with this lineup, I don't like it, okay, but you have to develop an anti-Widow strat that is not sure for playing Widowmaker. That's just that simple.
Or,
But
or you
I'm
have to
looking
wait
at
on building his Widowmaker up, which it looks like what they're doing, but it's taking a long time right
no,
now, right? Like
no,
he
no, no.
was better this week, but it's not there
I
yet.
mean, while Shufor has always been a great DPS player, he's never been tier 1 Widow. If you go back to Cloud9, Reaver was the Widow.
Yeah.
And Shufor was, another hit scan just monster. But Shufor was never the Widow guy.
Yeah, I mean, Jax, you know what? He used to miss, he's been missing shots like we're missing the point here, which is to get back on track. Fusion.
Philadelphia Fusion. Right.
Philadelphia
Fusion. I mean, Chef Heidi, again, every day I check the Twitter as I go through my, my normal checklist or rundown of everything I have to cover for Overwatch to make sure I stay up to date. Fantastic dinner she made for them after the playoffs last night, surf and turf, beautiful. I looked at the breakfast again, absolutely beautiful. And it's like, I look at the Philadelphia Fusion. They also have a strong media presence, which I haven't been linking it, but I plan on it. Right? They have their own videos like Inside Valiant do, but theirs, it's this is the only place I get to see Joe Meister, in the Fusion videos because Joe Meister never plays. But the thing is, Joe Meister, unlike say the people who don't play for the Valiant, we never hear from him. Like we heard from Numlock, he was airing, his own little laundry about how he doesn't get to play, and then the Valiant aired it for everybody. And then Silk Thread on his stream, what does he say? I probably won't play for the Valiant again.
Yeah.
But you look at someone like Joe Meister, who has never played. Like Silk Thread has played. Joe Meister never played. We've never seen him on. I think preseason because everybody who was signed we didn't even see him in preseason. They didn't have a team.
Oh yeah, they didn't get to play.
Joe Meister.
Joe Meister only visible in the videos, but at least they're giving him that.
So, or Shadowburn, who is tier 1 DPS material, and he just quietly drifted away. Now he's not gone, he's sitting on the bench biding his time. And it's like, how are the Fusion able to handle this, right? How are they able to handle their players and their rotation without all this drama? And perhaps that's part of the reason why we're now seeing the Fusion here in the playoffs facing the London Spitfire.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely great work from them to get here. Spitfire though, you had to give them the advantage going in. I believe that they were my pick to win overall stage, but here they had to get through.
I didn't know it
Fusion
at the
first.
time, but with the map pool that they have here in this semifinal, the Spitfire had been undefeated on 2 of the potentially 5 maps that were going to be played.
A ridiculous advantage.
And the
going
third
in.
map, Nepal, or not the third map, but a third map, Nepal, was the lowest, statistically the worst map for the Philadelphia Fusion. So you're looking at this and you're saying, I think I think we both picked London to win this stage. And you're saying, well, we did pretty good by picking this, so let's run it down.
Yeah, definitely. Getting right into it, Jax. The very first map that we started off on was Gibraltar, here against
one of my favorite maps. I like Watchpoint a lot.
And Fusion here, having the first attack, finds some problems against the Spitfire defense coming right out of the gates. Spitfire looking as poised and very well structured here right off the start, as you would expect from them. In Fusion, you see the problems they immediately have with Birdring, as he is doing the Widowmaker work you need on that A point to set up a full hold here.
I'm scratching my head because Carpe is the better of the 2 Widowmakers, but I suppose Carpe is also the better of the 2 playing Tracer, so they felt Carpe would get more done on Tracer, and EQO could probably get by playing Widow. Around the 3-minute mark, there was a key moment where EQO was on high ground. He had clear shots into the server room where there was Bidosin with no tank protecting him, missed the shot. Then there was Nuss on Mercy. All one right after another.
Yeah.
EQO misses the shot. And at that moment, I'm saying to myself, with 3 minutes left, at this level, we're in the playoffs of the Overwatch League, you can't miss that shot. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If you're playing Widow, those are shots you have to make, and I can't cut you any slack for that. Because from there, he got 1 kill onto Birdring once that didn't really account for anything, and that was it. And he stayed on Widow the whole time. Where is the plan B? Where is the switch to Genji, which is another, which we have seen, and which is what we know EQO is better at. So when you tell me they're held to 73.92 meters, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it was definitely a disappointing start out here for the Fusion, and the defense not any better than their offense, let's be honest. They come out on their attack, and
was under 2 minutes.
Spitfire.
Under 2 minutes they were done.
Spitfire immediately. You ask where's that Genji? It comes out on defense, immediately picked off anyways by the Widowmaker of Bird Ring, and that starts things happening from there for Spitfire to get full control of that push and make it very easily to that distance. Easily take the first match here, or first map off of the Philadelphia Fusion. Great start for them. Not a position you want to be into the Fusion. You're already looking at 2, maybe 3 maps that you have a disadvantage statistically going in, and you're dropping a map here that there was potential for you to take.
Yeah.
Jax, that takes us into the second map. Second map was Nepal, where we talked about statistics. Is this Nepal being the one for Fusion that they had their worst record? I think it was. I'm gonna misquote this. I believe it was like 1-4 or 1-3.
1-4. I think it was 1-4.
Yeah. So they would come into this not having a very strong record, but in a surprise, Jax, they actually did very well on this map.
2-2-2 Genji Tracer coming out from the Fusion versus a Soldier Tracer from the Spitfire. First cap went to Fusion, and it got all the way up to 86%. Sorry, it got all the way up to overtime before the Spitfire were able to flip it. And honestly, it was I think Bird Ring with the tactical visor got the kill onto Boombox, who was at 86% on his Zenyatta towards his Transcendence. If he doesn't get him there, then he gets the Transcendence, which is then able to sustain Fraggy, who was so close to getting his Primal Rage. And it was that you look for the key moments there as to why a team might turn it around. But they got it in overtime. That means one fight, right? That means Fusion, just take your time, bide your time, use your ultimates, get the point back, and you take it. And unlike the first map where the dive suffered, here the dive worked in the Fusion's favor. They got 2 into a pulse bomb, 2 into a Dragon Blade, and that was it.
It was a pretty simple affair, actually. Well executed by the Fusion here. Spitfire not finding the openings that you would typically expect when they're trying to face a lower level team. Fusion clearly not that lower level team the way they were playing here on Nepal Shrine. That
100-31.
Yeah, it was.
The way the casters talked it up, honestly, I expected it to be that exact reverse here. So going into the village, I'm saying to myself, are we going to see, the continued dominance here on Koth from the Fusion, or the Spitfire going to wake up? Interesting here, we had Triple Tank come out from the Fusion, 3-1-2, with EQO on the Roadhog, and with the Moira as well to back them. No surprise with Moira. And then we had a 2-2-2 again from. Oh, wait a minute. Wow, my notes are wrong. This was Fusion with the 3-1-2.
Yeah, Fusion had 3-1-2, and there was a 2-2-2
twice on my notes here. Yeah, that's why. Okay.
They came out and immediately found Bdosin on their attack with that composition. Spitfire immediately retreated and switched their own composition to Rhine Zarya Reaper combination there, in order to counteract it, and it worked, right? Like it worked. They came back. The Reaper found 2 right off the start. And
you say the Reaper, and I noticed the Reaper, but did you notice how fast Gesture got his Earth Shatter? Fraggy started out on the Reinhardt in that first fight. The Spitfire lost, and then Gesture switched from Winston to Rhine. He beat Fraggy to Earth Shatter by 40%, even though Fraggy had 1 full fight advantage there. And it's like, yes, Bird Ring did fantastic work on the Reaper, but I was amazed at how fast Gesture got his ult up.
Some of that's the positioning when you're attacking,
stood out to me.
Right?
Yeah.
Like a Fusion standing on point a little bit there, piling up people, allowing that hammer to hit multiple targets. Everyone loves to say Ryan's DPS really low. Yeah, that's true, except for when there are multiple people in one area, and then that's pretty high. Here, he builds it up pretty quickly, but they only hold it for that fight, Jax, because right after that, you get Carpe finding Prophet on that Zarya. And I'm sorry, I don't think Prophet Zarya is that great all the time. Sure, he gets charged, particularly on certain maps, but here, finding himself caught early causes a bit of an issue for the Spitfire.
Standard DPS that flexes onto Zarya, because Zarya with high charge is basically another DPS. So it's basically what you expect from someone like that, someone who doesn't play Zarya full time, just flexing to it because of how good she is. The interesting thing here, this was a lot of brawling. which when you get triple tank, that's not a surprise. You get a lot of just straight up fighting, and it's kind of like a momentum thing. And I'm looking here at Boombox, who he started with the Moira, he went to the Zen, he went back to the Moira. There was a lot of back and forth, and I'm looking at Birdring. He started what? He went to the Reaper, then he went to the Junkrat, and ultimately, what I'm looking at here is the Fusion taking it 100 to 98, and Carpe going 24 and 2 on King of the Hill.
Yeah, a ridiculous round stats wise for Carpe. I mean, by the stats, you can't look at that and say anything but Carpe a huge difference maker here on Nepal this time around for that 2-0 series, or sorry, the 2-0 map scoreline, bringing it to 1-1 series scoreline heading into the third map. Carpe, this is what you want out of him. Obviously, if you can get this out of EKO and your other members too, that's great. Carpe, though, difference maker.
I mean,
officer.
EKO for me kind of quiet. Like his watch point was kind of quiet. His Nepal kind of quiet. But Carpe, unlike where Carpe couldn't get it done on watch point, now he is stepping it up. And it's interesting back and forth because, like I said, I kept expecting, I kept looking to see this weakness that the casters were saying the Fusion had on Nepal, and whatever preparation the coaching staff did here has worked. Really, really solid performance from them here, and from there we go. And the reason why it's important, Lep, is they lost Wasp Point. They go to Nepal, which is their worst map, and then they go to Hanamura, which is one of the two maps the Spitfire have not lost on the entire stage. And so you're saying you have to get these wins when you can, because these are maps that your opponent are traditionally very good at.
Yeah, and so here we are, Hanamura, one that's favored going into it for the Spitfire. Spitfire, though, finding some difficulty with the fusion attack as Boombox lights up the kill feed, finding Birdring early, and then Prophet as well later on that A point attack, setting up for a pretty good quick A time.
Did you say the support character Zenyatta deleted both the enemy DPS?
Who would have thought, Jax, that a Zenyatta able to find some kills? Listen,
I'm
important play coming out of Boombox. We have seen him in some games be very, very quiet and shut down. This is the Boombox that we've been hoping would come out in the Overwatch League. I'm not going to say throughout. Like, it would be nice if he was this consistent. Great here, though, in order to buy them that room to find that A point. Unable to take advantage of their ultimates they built up for that B point, though, Jackson.
They had 5 ultimates going in, and they built up the 6th one. They got no ticks from it. I'm just like, come on, team. Use the snowball. Ride the snowball. But it didn't.
And that's a big concern, though, right? Because B point often comes down to having those ultimates and being able to leverage that into a fight win advantage based off of the difference in ultimates, right? Your positioning plus your ultimates, and you turn that into a win. If you go into your first fight and you have that advantage on B point and you still can't find a tick, that is concerning because the defense doesn't really ever change from that point on.
No. At 445, the offense changes. EQO drops the Genji for Soldier. It started with 635, then they make the switch at 445, and now with 1 minute left, I'm looking at a Sound Barrier into a Primal Rage into a Tactical Visor for the Fusion. They still get nothing. Let me ask something, because this is we see this all the time. The strat that the Fusion were trying to execute here.
Yeah.
Right side, high ground with Soldier. Is Hanamura boring for you?
Hanamura is a bit boring, yes.
This is what everybody seems to do. We saw one. Who was it? Was it the Gladiators? We saw try the left side strat with the speed with the Zenyatta to get him across the gap. It didn't work, but they tried it. Because I was watching this, I'm saying, I've seen this before. I've seen this the entire stage.
Yeah.
And it's like high ground. So how many teams? They might start with a Genji, but then they end up with high ground Soldier.
Yeah.
For 5 and 6 minutes. It's like, wow.
Yeah, so if you ask me what the problem on this map is, it's the fact that high upper right has no easy flank for the attackers to get into another entrance, right? Like, you have to go through a choke to get to the upper balcony. If there was a stairwell down to the lower right, where they could suddenly flank and come out from a new direction with a fairly quick time, that would help out. Like, I don't mind choke points, Jax, but here the choke point is so bad for the offense that when you put yourself up into the upper right attacking position, you have a long way to go to find any other opening from there, and you're in a bad position. if
Middle
that's
bottom is
what you're doing.
terrible because if you try to push middle bottom and they're on the high ground, you're going to get slaughtered.
Yeah,
Right side bottom that one is just hell.
I I
Um,
mean yes and no, but like you need to be able to move between positions quickly, right? And
but
unfortunately,
you can't move from right side bottom. You can't go anywhere, dude. It's death. What,
uh,
you want to go from right side bottom all the way across the left side, or from right straight to the point? And it's like the sight lines aren't favorable for the attackers.
I mean the problem with the right side bottom is the stairwell that has like a 290 degree or like a 90
Yeah,
degree and a 180 degree turn.
yeah.
That needs to go away. You shouldn't have it so hard to get up from the bottom on that bottom right. You should have the bottom right connection to upper right on attacker's side. Anyways, whatever. We're getting into map discussion and balance here.
Well, no,
That
no. I actually
it's a
had
huge
here
issue though.
I actually have my line in my notes that started discussion on Hanamura tactics because this was like 5 weeks of this. I'm like, thankfully, we don't have Hanamura anymore. It's just how many of the time of these games ends up like this, where a soldier trying to get in, or the team tries to get to that right side, and quite often, it's the tracer is able to get into the back line with the blinks and pressure the supports that forces the defense to fall back, and then your team can get in.
Yeah, and the
Here,
prime example of that, Jax, if I
yeah,
can remind you, Fuel versus Valiant soon
that's
shutting down effect hard
exactly what I
on
was
that
talking
far
about.
left flank with the 1v1 tracer. And then it's the same situation we talked about Widowmakers. Like, can your tracer hang in the tracer v tracer then, right? Because you're
Here,
not getting in if you don't do that.
here in this instance, I completely agree with Monty where he talks about the Nano Dragon Blade in the final fight going into overtime that the Spitfire used. They needed to just use the Dragon Blade and then put the Nano Boost onto Gesture because at this level they track ultimates. We may not do it in our own competitive games, but at this level they track ultimates to know what the enemy has, and they know at this point because he hasn't used it. Boombox has to have Transcendence. So
Yeah.
when they send in the Nano Dragon Blade, you automatically know the Transcendence is going to come out. They got lucky, and that he does get the Lucio, right? He gets Neptuno dead, but he doesn't get anything else with it. That's two ultimates down for the price of one. And from there, it's like they invested so much into this, expecting more from it, and when it didn't happen, they kind of didn't have anything else to fall back on. And the
EKO
Fusion
with the
used that.
dashes,
That
able to clean up, man. Like you
you
let
and
a
I agree.
Genji
We
move
hate
around.
Genji dash reset. We
Yeah.
absolutely hate it's just, oh hey dash 50 damage. Oh hey dash 50 damage, and you've just killed three people. And it's like, come on, what is that?
It's
But that's not ever gonna change.
that absolutely won't change. I know it won't, but it's just going to remain in the game, and this is what allows you to do. It allows you to snowball kills really quickly. That's why you have the Genji in part in there. Dragon Blade obviously great itself. Clean up for the overtime capture, Jax. Doesn't even matter though. Fusion defense, great work here against Spitfire
Six
attack.
minutes and 35 seconds took them the entire time. So okay, it's the Spitfire. No match first. Cap it out. Cap it out with at least a minute left. Give yourself a chance to go on that second attack while the Fusion have nothing left in their time bank, and make it happen.
There's two
But
things I want to talk about on their defense, Jax, to try and shorten this up. I'm just
you mean
gonna
the Fusion defense? Okay,
in
yeah.
the Fusion defense, they did lose point for a little bit, but Carpe, huge pulse bomb onto Jester, another kill on a D-mech to secure a hold there. Huge return by Fusion onto that point. That's the first point I wanted to bring out on their defense here. That was great. Second thing, the Neptuno sleeps on
Yeah.
point. Or sorry, I shouldn't say on point. That sounds like they're actually on point. No, what I mean to say was they were great sleep darts coming out of
They
the
were
Ana
on
player
point.
of
No, that's
Neptuno.
perfectly fine. I think a lot of the times, or the problems when I see people play Ana on in the various streams, or when I went back to playing recently, and it's like if I miss my sleeps, I know I'm dead. And here, if Neptuno misses his sleeps, they probably don't retake the point, and they probably feed a lot of ultimate charge into the Spitfire for their attack into the B point. A few mistakes here. One, the Spitfire too complacent. You can't sit back. I know very rarely do teams try to reassault Hanamura A point because it's not the best. It's not the most friendly situation for a defense trying to play attackers in that situation. But that being said, they had no lookout, man. They were just waiting. They're capping the point, la di la di da, and then next thing you know, there's sleeps here. There's a nano boost there. There's Carpe killing half the team,
Yeah.
and they're down to about their final push, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Um, It's too passive. It's just, to me, this is a mental lapse by the Spitfire, who thought they were safe when they were in fact not safe.
Yeah, they're already. I think they were probably discussing what they're going to do for their B point
Yes.
attack, and in looking forward, they lost view of what they need to do right now. I agree with you. If I had to guess what was going on in comms, that's
No,
probably
I
what
mean, you
happened.
know what? Because they got a late kill. It was on to EQO, I think, on the Genji. And they're saying, okay, they're probably tracking when he's gonna be off respawn. They're looking at the clock and saying, okay, how do they want to go about assaulting the B point? Because we just talked about how B point ends up into a stall where a soldier tries to get to the high ground right side. They want to avoid that. Sadly, they don't even get the first point. This is their first loss on Hanamura, and now we're looking at match point in a best of 5 series for the Philadelphia Fusion.
Yeah, they're taking it to Kings Row, Jax, and
My
Kings Row.
favorite map.
Great map. You see a little bit tank heavier play come out here. Carpe running the Hanzo on the start, and what a Hanzo it turns out to be. Finding the flank in the scatter arrow onto Bird Ring, who was too busy looking down scope.
They have to know flanking Hanzo's. I mean, I'm sure they had to have seen him go through the hotel, right? They saw him. Except if they saw him, then Birdring wouldn't have been that unaware and eaten. I think the best part was when they showed it again on the replay, and we had the comms, and Carpe is like, got one. And it's like, yeah, you got a pretty big one there, because they were running a 3-1-2 Widow defense, and sorry, they were running 2-2-2 Junkrat Widow versus the 3-1-2 Hanzo. And that one pick just opened it all up. From there, the snowball rolled through the first point. They had 5 minutes and 45 seconds left to push second.
Slight delay in second, but not too much.
I mean, you say a slight delay was about what? They went from 5 minutes and 45 to push second to 4 minutes and 45 seconds to push third. And that's when things kind of slow down a bit for the Fusion. Not much, just a bit.
Yeah, I mean, they do switch Carpe to the Widow here. It doesn't find immediate value, but they do get some damage to push in, and they still end up with a great time though. Jax 232 on the board.
232. Carpe started out bad, but ended pretty hot with some just nasty headshots.
The flanking graviton here didn't end up working out for the Fusion.
That was the flanking graviton on top of the previous graviton that was eaten right before second point. But thankfully, they were able to push through without it. For me right now on the attack, MVP is Carpe. His Hanzo, not just for the pick that he got on Bird Ring on first point, but he built up his Dragon Strike so quickly in second point that Uber was like, "What Dragon Strike again?" When he just zoned them out, because the Graviton was eaten, he still put out the Dragon Strike because you're trying to go for the combo, and it was like, well, okay, he built it up again, and he switches from Hanzo to Widow, and started out slow, ended up pretty well. 2 minutes and 32 in time bank. Really, actually, that's a pretty good time. 2:32 is a really good time.
That's a really good time. But Jax, Spitfire attack, quickest time on A point, I believe, in the Overwatch League ever. It's going to be hard to beat.
I think Reinforce said best time ever on a LAN. I don't see how it's not the best time. Period. Lepalose. There was never any downtime. They went from boom to point to capture.
3-1-2 Carpe on the Widow defense, but 3-1-2 with the Junkrat for the Spitfire finding Neptune immediately forces that defense off, and they never contested. Not even once, Jax. And Poco after there gets demeched, Jester lands big Earth Shatter, and Spitfire roll through.
Real. You know how if you take a look at you compare the two times on the Fusion attack, they had 5 minutes and 45 seconds to push the second point and 4 minutes and 45 to push the third point. So, they lost a minute. Here, the Spitfire had 6 minutes to push the second point. They had 6 minutes and 7 seconds to push the third.
That's how bad.
They gained time in the middle phase.
Let's also be honest, Fusion only able to stabilize after the huge amount of heals coming out of Moira there right before the end.
Okay. I think
Really,
at
really
that point,
close one otherwise.
you called it silly on the Discord after I said it was ridiculous that Moira was able to sustain Fraggy through all of that damage. And then Fraggy with, the non-cowardly Reinhardt charge that should have ended in his death but didn't.
Yeah.
I have problems here with Carpe. I praised him for their attack, his Hanzo into his Widowmaker, fantastic play here. Here he was on defensive Widowmaker. He fell into the trap, Lepalose, and he never really escaped. We talk about the 2 minutes and 32 seconds in a time bank for the Fusion. Compare that to the 3 minutes and 49 seconds the Spitfire had after their attack.
Jax, if you want to talk about traps, how about Fraggy there trying to flank on that Earth Shatter setup right before the end? He missed the charge.
He
It's
missed
so
the
disappointing.
charge, and so he wasn't there to contest.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a true C9. It was a mini C9 in that they had people alive and they just didn't make it to the point
in time. You like the idea of what he tried to do, though.
It's
dangerous.
Have,
it's a high risk, high reward.
The payload is pushing, which means the enemy are coming down the hill with the upwards advantage. Like, they're looking at you.
Yeah.
If you're looking back, you want to be doing that from behind a Reinhardt shield or an Orisa shield or some kind of shield. If your Reinhardt is off on the side, he might hit the slam. I mean, I don't think he hits the slam.
No, so
because he has to go through the charge, and after the charge, he then has to hit the slam. They're not gonna let that happen.
So like here's my deal is like if you're gonna flank like that, you have to know somebody else is gonna touch the cart. He shouldn't be the one touching the cart, right?
I think
if
Poco
was
was like half a step behind.
Yeah, I know. So like if you take that half a step behind, if you're the flanking Reinhardt in that situation, all you should do is Earth Shatter the two supports and clear them. Yep. All you need to do, if somebody else can touch the cart. Here, Poco not able to touch the cart. Some little panic there on the Fusion. I don't mind the attempt here, but it's sort of. I'm not going to say it cost him either, right? Like it might maybe some time. Execution was poor. Yeah, that's a good point. If we want to talk about poor execution, let's talk about Fusion's second attack here. Not dealing with the 3-1-2 Junkrat on A point at all. Graviton surges on the side of Spitfire coming out and doing damage when they need to, including catching Neptuno during the sound barrier casting. Graviton surges on the side of Fusion Jax. How do you feel about those ones?
The biggest one with 30 seconds left. You see him flanked through the hotel. By him, I mean Poco on the Zarya. He goes for the Graviton, not, mid-range Graviton. It gets eaten. Carpe threw in the Dragon Strike. Sadly, there was no Graviton to suck them all in, and they were done. You top it off with a nice big 3K Riptire from Birdring, cherry on top kind of moment right there. And wow.
Yeah.
You went from us praising the Fusion for their great attack to their awful defense to now their even worse second attack. So they have to hold the Spitfire, who just set the fastest time ever on 8-point attack, for 3 minutes and 49 seconds without giving up a tick.
Yeah. Can we just say Fury there looking, how many in total did he eat? 4, I believe. 4 in total on the map. He's looking hungry. Probably wants some of that Chef Heidi goodness. On the other hand, Poco, you got to not have those. You know better. Like, this is not only the Diva player; it's more on the Zarya player, in my opinion, to know when that defensive matrix is available or not.
A few of those were far too long range. This last one here was a desperation. We're not big fans of desperation. But I don't even really like their setup overall. They went back to the 3-1-2 Widow.
Yeah.
It's like your 3-1-2 Widow didn't work last time, and
he finds a couple picks, but it's not enough. It's too messy on A point to really scrap out with a Widowmaker, right?
It's not clean. It's because because if you're trading, it's bad. The attackers will reinforce faster.
Yeah.
And here,
Shanghai Dragons can beat Dynasty on King's Row with their play on A if you create messy fights, right? Like, that's how it works out.
For Graviton, for what? This is episode 80. For 80 episodes now, we've talked. You and I, we've put so much value into the Graviton surge.
Yeah.
4 Gravitons eaten in one map.
I think that's some stage nerves coming to Poco. Wow. I'd imagine. That's not settling down, because I don't think regularly he would get so many eaten. And sure, Fury, great Diva player, but again, I put this more on the Zarya player,
It's on the Zarya.
and I think it's nerves. I think that's nerves getting to him.
Lepalose, you talk about nerves. I'm now looking at Route 66 map 5 and EQO out, Snillo in.
What a change up this is. We have seen him come out. We know Snillo's the tracer specialist, which is crazy knowing that Carpe is also an incredible one maps already based off of his
playoff life on the line here.
And you bring in
tag out EQO. You don't see Shadowburn, the big hitter, come in. You bring up the guy fresh out of the minor leagues, 18 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
What kind of pressure is that?
Listen, it's the type of pressure that makes champions, Jax.
Okay.
If you can deliver. Snillo here delivering. Let's be honest. Let's condense this one, Jax. Snillo, great play here on Route 66, both attack and defense. Attack here, going the side of Fusion throughout. I mean, obviously there were some defenses because they got held to a minute 23 on their 3-point captures.
That's a solid time for Route 66, which is one of the longest maps. His tracer play here pushed them through every stage. Yes, Carpe was doing his thing on the Widow, right? He was holding his own in the Widow fight against Birdring. Actually, Birdring at one point, Snillo was doing so much, though, that Birdring dropped the Widowmaker to go McCree. Because while he was doing well in the Widow fight, Snillo was doing far too much. And right now, I'm saying, I didn't expect to say this, Snillo outperforming Prophet on the Tracer.
And that's incredible.
That kind of threw me.
That definitely would like I mentioned building champions, when you have a player that can come out into a single map and have that kind of a performance against a formal top tier Tracer.
Yeah.
Or I mean, he is a top tier Tracer.
When you force your opponent to make a change for you, fantastic work. Because now you're ahead. They're switching off of what they want to run into what they have to run in order to deal with you. From there, in the final third, you even had Birdring go for the surprise Bastion. The surprise for him was the pulse bomb that then a little stuck to him at the end, so the Bastion got very little done. And what might be a surprise to you, Lepalose, is the 24-1 that Snillo had on attack here with 14 final blows.
Incredible stats coming out of a player subbed in for one map here. I mean, this is like Pine level of being subbed in. You know what I mean?
The big boss.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a player that can make that impact, at least on one map. I have no idea what Snillo's making, but he's definitely angling for.
Carpe's making 180.
There's definitely. I mean, I can see Carpe earning a lot of money. Yeah, he is doing incredibly well. But here, you pair him with Snillo, their combination opens up the flex play coming out of Carpe and a solid tracer play out of Snillo, and all of a sudden you're looking at Shadowburn and EQO being like, are we going to be needed in future matches? All right, like it's definitely questionable. All of a sudden you have 3 flex players and 2 tracer, and the best flex players that you have and the best tracer players you have are not either Shadowburn or EQO. Okay, that's a bit of a joke.
Spitfire right now, you are concerned.
Yeah,
because the time isn't fantastic, but it's a time, right? Because they completed the map. They have time left. It's over a minute. You're concerned. 1, you're concerned that they made it. 2, you're concerned because you have not dealt with Snillo yet, and I don't know how much preparation they have for him. We saw him. We have seen him, right? This is the Snillo map, but ideally they're probably preparing more for Carpe, trying to deal with his Widow. And, trying to limit what Frag can do in his aggression, or making sure Boombox doesn't get hot on the Zen. And so we go into the Spitfire attack. We're seeing 2-2-2 Widow Tracer for both sides. And unlike the Fusion, the Spitfire don't get the dominant first point here. It was what? How much time did they have left? Overtime?
It was overtime on the A point that they finally got through here. Maybe off of a bit of a misplay of Fraggy getting in a bit deep without protection from Poco when he needed it in order to try and get out. It ended up costing them. But
there was an interesting moment for me around 2 minutes and 5 seconds left. Prophet unable to get the one clip on the boombox on the Zenyatta. It's just Prophet for me overall has had a very quiet series. Not bad, but lower than his normal level of output. So I guess that is bad because this is the playoffs now.
So like if I could summarize it, playing more like Munchkin and less like Sabalbi.
No, that's perfect. That's beautiful. perfectly put. Because it's the little things, and no, I don't think I'm expecting too much. When in the playoffs here, I look for that one clip where Boombox gets away, gets healed up, and you know who then kills Prophet? Boombox. It's like you get to jump on the Zen gets away and then kills you. That then I'm not surprised now that you're being pushed into overtime before you can get the cap. I'm not surprised now that Birdring is having to switch off of the Widow to go Genji because he's not, he's in a tough fight against Carpe. So when he's in that tough fight, he needs Profit to help him. He needs Profit to output more and not less. And when that doesn't happen, then they have to go for a Genji, which is more, Widow is, pretty straightforward. Now with the Genji, he's able, he's multitasking. He's on the Widow, he's on the support, he's all over the place. But it was an overtime cap for them. And then I'm looking at the second point, Leplos. It was another overtime cap for them. So they're starting with a minute and 30 seconds to push the final third. When I think you said the Fusion had a minute and 23 seconds left in their time bank overall.
Yeah, it's you're already in an advantageous position if you're Fusion at this point. Fusion able to close this one out. Really great work in the third phase. I mean, we had Carpe on the Widow switch here into third, but despite the early advantages from Carpe going down from Birdwing finding him and Prophet finding a Fraggy out, 2 kills by a pulse bomb by Snillo brings the fight back for Fusion to hold again. And plays like that, huge plays coming out of Snillo, like we've already mentioned.
Plays out of Snillo and questionable plays for me from Bedosin. Because I was keeping track of his transcendence. He gets his transcendence, gesture dies. He had 85% to his primal rage. I'm saying, not at that point. Gesture dies once, and then he comes off of respawn. Bedosin had just built the transcendence. So I'm saying, okay, he didn't want to use it then. Now they're in overtime making the push. Fury loses his mech. Bedosin still has transcendence. Gesture then dies a second time at 85% of primal rage. What is he holding the transcendence for?
Yeah.
You've just lost both your main tanks. Gesture, who could have used the sustain from the transcendence to build that last 15% of primal rage, and then who knows what could have happened. But you wait for both your tanks to die, and then you use transcendence? For what, man? It's over.
And not only that, the other troubles too is target selection and follow-up. Dragonblade kill onto Carpe in the later fight too. Yeah. 1 kill, immediately rezzed, and he pays his life for it. So you basically traded for a res, and you died. Like, you can't have that happen at this level if you're Birdring. It's a horrible position.
This is Route 66, the other map that the London Spitfire had never lost on in the stage.
Yep.
They've just lost it. They're out in the semifinals.
Incredible performance coming out of Fusion to take this series. Winning when they were not expected to win. In fact, all the maps they won on were not their favorite maps.
1, they come in you don't expect them to win against the London Spitfire. 2, when you look at the maps that are here, you really don't expect them to win against the London Spitfire. And 3, when they're bringing in Snillo, the rookie.
Yeah.
You're like, but now you have to say the coaching staff perhaps knows what they're doing.
Yeah, the training of their players and getting them up to speed is clearly there.
I'm used to the Philadelphia Fusion coaching staff putting in Dayfly for Boombox. Those are the kind of adjustments I'm expecting from this team here. Now they're making use of that roster, and I'm looking. I'm saying to myself, our viewer that we have in chat here quite often, Toasty, like our clock guy, he said the Fusion were his. He's a Dynasty fan. He said the Fusion were his sleeper team for the season.
If they continue to perform like this, I can see why. I like the coaching decision to bring in Snillo if they had trust in him and faith to bring him out on the 5th map here and have him make an impact. And he did make a huge impact.
Fantastic Tracer play. And you and I both agree Tracer kind of overpowered. So, wow. If you're the London Spitfire, you're disappointed.
Yeah.
Stage 1 champions, you expect, to challenge the Excelsior for Stage 2 title, and you're out.
Let's also talk about it. Plus 15 for Snillo on that one map. Just one map, plus 15, Jax. Profit, the opposing side, minus 5.
I'm not used to seeing Prophet struggle this much in a Tracer fight.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because he didn't have the footage on Snillo, which is
An
it's an
impact for
excuse,
sure.
but it's still something that he has to work around. And next time these two teams face, if they're both him and Snillo are on the map at the same time, it's something I'm gonna take a look at. But
It also goes to another point that I think we mentioned a little bit yesterday, but having a good depth of your roster and why you want to build all your teams to be potential sub-ins, because you can do
gotta
things like
manage your
this.
roster properly. Fantastic work here.
Jack, speaking of managing your roster, let's talk about something going into the final match. Now you have a half-hour break, was it, between matches? You've got to be feeling high on adrenaline if you're Fusion. You're
Did
entering
Heidi make him a
NYXL.
snack or something, man? Get that blood sugar going.
Maybe she had a brown bag lunches for these guys to continue on. But listen, you're riding high on the motions. It's gonna be an issue though. We saw this with NYXL, I believe it was, where they had to in stage 1 go through.
This was Spitfire. Spitfire played 14 maps
Yeah,
in one day.
Yeah, they had to play 14 maps in one day. It was a ridiculous amount. Here, a little bit later for the Fusion, but you have to be a little bit worried about their stamina. Maybe not used to it to the same extent the Spitfire team might be.
Right.
Plus, the Spitfire had a larger roster that got subbed in overall in stage 1. So they had some advantages here, though.
I'm looking at this, Lepalose. First map, Route 66. They're leaving Snillo in. What? Listen, you're asking a lot from this guy. First, you put him up against Prophet. Then from Prophet, you put him up against Sabolbi. Are you serious, dude?
Yeah, no, it's incredible that you would do this.
Two best tracers in the league almost. Sabolbi for me is the best tracer.
A lot of faith in your player.
You're asking a lot from the guy who has not had much first team experience, at least on stage. Now he's not in a semifinal. He's in the finals. He's had a 30-minute break. He's young, and I keep hearing about this LAN experience that all these teams want these players to have. He doesn't have much, but a lot of faith the coaching staff is putting into him here.
Yeah, and Snillo here not performing quite as well as he did against Spitfire. He only got a plus 12 on the map versus plus 15 against Spitfire. Jax.
This is an interesting start here. I did not expect. So we had 2-2. But Fusion went on the attack first. That's another rough thing. The Fusion being the away team, they have to attack first every time.
On the day.
It's that's I don't know how much I like that.
I mean I sort of do because like home team advantage. I believe in that, but. I mean, it is sort of weird. I don't know. I don't know what else you would do in terms of trying to give a home team or a leader advantage.
But then we have the Excelsior coming on defense first. 2-2 Junkrat Widow. Sabolbi on Widowmaker. I'm like,
Orisa as well. Sort of a weird pick here.
Interesting verse, and you have the Fusion coming out with Tracer Widow. No surprise there after their previous thing, and like the Spitfire, the first change on the Widow fight, Sabolbi drops the Widow to go Tracer.
I'm not at all surprised that happened.
One, he's not getting enough, and then two, he's got to help deal with Snillo on the Tracer. It was 4 minutes and 45 seconds to push the second point. It's just, here's the deal. We talk about their match against the Fusion, against Spitfire, and how well it went. It was 4 minutes and 5 seconds to push against the Spitfire. It's now 4 minutes and 45. It's 40 seconds faster, is what I'm saying. Their first point cap.
Yeah.
They're improving against the better team now.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely great work coming out against or by Fusion here. They are held though, Jax. I'm just going to skip ahead to try and shorten this up. They are held in third. Libero back on Junkrat and Jay Jonik finally warming up here to find those tracer kills and shutting Snillo down. Snillo, of course, able to get 3 or 4, I believe, right after the transfer into third. So they still got far into third, but not enough to take it.
Oh, I didn't write a distance down. That's not like me. But interesting stat that was put out there. Out of the 6 players for the New York XL, 1 person had a positive KD. You know who that was?
Jonak?
Jay Jonak.
Yeah.
The support player.
The
only player on the team with a positive KD after a successful defense where they prevented the full cap was your Zen? Wow.
Yeah,
That's
talk about a carry for the
just putting
NYXL
that out there.
these days.
But that being said, the Excelsior, this is what you want. You want a distance. You don't want to have to make it and then, well, they got it, so we have to go do a second attack. No. They have a distance to meet. So now they go on their attack. We see what still 2/2 Tracer Widow from the defense of the Fusion and
Orisa Road Junkrat Widowmaker.
Junkrat Widow attack again. Sabolbi back on the Widowmaker. This is the reason why I'm surprised is this is the XL who instead of fighting Fleta, Widow v Widow, they decided to go with Genji Tracer and just pressure him and harass him and not let him get set up. And now they're trying to force a Widow fight. And I'm just not sure I like it. But that being said, 4 minutes and 45 seconds is what the Fusion had to push second. The Excelsior have 5 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah, incredibly strong attack here. I'm not sure if there's a miscommunication or it's a misstep by Poco here. Either way, he dies first early in the first fight, and from there, Fusion just basically back off entirely from that A point. I'll come back to this later, but I'm just going to say here, Jax, when Fusion look like things are going wrong, they look like they're going really wrong.
Yeah. No, it was a really bad first point attack. They do buy some time in the second phase.
Fraggy Snillo camping Sabalbi after Carpe had the pick on him off the start there. Huge play to try and get him out of the game early and sort of shut down the NYXL attack by sort of a positional errors or a lack of awareness coming out of NYXL.
I have to say here, one, it was a hold basically. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. We didn't officially say that the New York Excelsior failed to. They didn't meet the Philadelphia Fusion distance, but two, they didn't even capture the second point here.
They got really close though, Jax. I mean, we have to talk about it.
What's close mean?
OT fight. The OT fight is what we have to talk about here because that was a huge fight for the Fusion to come out and like going into that. I was not sure, right? Because this is I don't know. Maybe I'll have to go back and look at statistics for these returning fights before that point, but I have a feeling that in general it feels like the teams usually aren't able to hold, they buy time on that. And it was going OT into the fight, so I was wondering, like, you had, I think it was like 67 meters or something, so you didn't get too far into the third. So I don't know why you take the fight here instead of just letting them cap the point, and as the point is captured, then you fight them in order to buy as much time as you can in the third. Right. So that might have been my decision, but here though Fusion makes the decision
Fusion,
go for it.
They showed their aggressive play on Hanamura against the Spitfire, where how many teams push back in on Hanamura A point? They don't. And now here it's not the exact same situation, but we're seeing that aggression here. And I have here in my notes. I don't know if you agree with me or not. I've never seen Sabolbi have such little impact in a map.
Yeah, he's definitely had a little bit of warming up to do.
Fantastic performance here.
Again, I go back to the numbers that I mentioned before. Not quite as good as his debut against Spitfire in the earlier matchup of the day here.
Debut, but yeah.
Of the day, but of plus 12 here is still a really good stat. Carpe actually doing really good work on the Widowmaker. I think that was even more so the difference. Like, they were both deadly threats. He had a plus 13.
Yeah.
And the amount of death that Meko had, like a diva with 6 and 9 was his kills and deaths. That's incredibly high, low.
But here, this was a fantastic team performance from the Spitfire. That's Spitfire, my goodness. I'm so tied up here, but from the Fusion, because while we're focusing on the DPS here, or I might mention J. Jonak's stats, the tanks from the Fusion didn't let them down. Too often you look at the teams, where's the drop off at? It's the main tank, right? Fraggy is a good tank. We don't necessarily think of Fraggy as a tier 1 tank up there with Fisher and Gesture and Miro at times. Although Miro had a bit of, Miro not as strong as we thought he might be compared to what Gesture and Fisher do. Or Mano, right? Mano, fantastic tank here.
Yeah.
The tanks, and I think this is what's needed though if they're going to contend. Just need you need your team, the pieces, to not let you down, to just hold the line, and that's what they did here. The tanks did their job, which freed up Snillo and Carpe to overperform, because I mean, for me, that's the only way I could think of it for Snillo to be playing this well against people like Libero and Sabobi here.
Yeah.
Fantastic performance from them. And I have to ask, right? Snillo playing this well, the last two match levels, high pressure situations, bench him. You bench him and bring EQO back out, man.
You have your stats and you have your regular team for other maps.
Lepalose, he's hot, man. You don't ride that hot streak.
No, I don't ride the hot streak. I don't
Oh.
believe in riding hot streaks like that. That is dangerous territory because not only do you not practice that and you put everyone else on your team into a unique position of trying to play around a spot that you don't practice around, you also put increased pressure on that player to perform. And when he will fail because hot streaks end, that hits him mentally too. And you don't put your players in that position, particularly not in grand finals. I don't care what the casters say. That's my view of it.
So we're going to the second map now, Lijiang Tower. What is this? EQO in for Snillo. We're on the night market, seeing what is 312 Junkrat from the New York Excel.
Immediate value.
Libero on the Junkrat, and then Roadhog being played by Sabobi versus the 222 Genji Tracer from the Fusion. First cap goes to the XL, right? Libero getting that beautiful pick on the Junkrat with the spam because that's what he's good at. And it's, 82% before the Fusion are able to flip it back.
Yeah, Fusion here securing point. Poco doesn't lose that Graviton Surge against the wall after that, Jax. Another hold for the Fusion, but the Pharah coming out for the side of NYXL. Good work. EKO, nothing off of Dragon Blade. He switches to McCree to try and handle that. Carpe trying to flank, forces NYXL in a later fight to misposition, allow Fusion to retake point. Keep the fight close, but NYXL more than enough in the trades to take the fight back.
This was a fantastic back and forth, not just with point control, but with hero swaps. Or you have Sabobi dropping his Roadhog for Tracer, Libero dropping his Junkrat for Pharah. You have EQO going to McCree, Poco going to D.Va to help mitigate damage while facing the Pharah. It was a lovely map of picks and counter picks, and it's lately King of the Hill has been almost like one or two fights, right? You get the first fight, someone gets it, and then you're in overtime. And it's been a while since I've seen such a back and forth with so many hero swaps in one map. But as you said, XL took this first one 100 to 94. We're on to the control center. We're seeing mirror compositions now. 3-1-2 Junkrat for both sides. And Lepalose, I talked about, Gesture getting that quick Earth Shatter in the previous round on Nepal when the Spitfire were facing the Fusion. Here, Fraggy, Earth Shatter, before the point even unlocks, man.
We talked about it. Again, DPS of Reinhardt when there's a bunch of people in close place. Really good here.
That's 25 seconds, Lepalose.
And the other thing is the Reinhardt of of Mano going down here.
Yeah.
Huge issue because then you can land that Earth Shatter, which was what happened. So, huge plays coming out of Fraggy and the Fusion to take the point. But Graviton Surge on the other side built up. Return with that. And Jax, from here on, can we just mention we're back to the 3 tank metas when Zarya were king?
Okay, control center, tight, compact, with the more we're able to get all those big heals. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all to see 3-1-2 Junkrat. This map particular favors it. Hopefully we don't get too much of triple tank, because after that we're going to be back in quad tank land, and I'm really not looking forward to that.
I mean, we'll see with upcoming changes, but I don't think we're going to be there quite yet. We'll continue to see some on these site maps, some of this differing compositions than just full dive.
Yeah.
Here it goes back and forth. Graviton surges once Poco switches to Zarya, ends up making a bit of a difference to secure a flip and another hold later on for the Fusion in order to edge out here on this map, force out Garden Phase.
This is a really, really close matchup here on King of the Hill. I talked about the back and forth we saw on the first point. Here on the second point, more of the same. 199, really back and forth play. And I think the timing was just a little bit off for Mano. The cat, I think, was Mr. X pointed out that he made the switch to Doomfist because he was trying to get back fast enough in order to just have a presence there. but the Fusion were so slow that had he come back on Reinhardt, he still would have been in time. It's just you don't know it at that point.
Yeah.
And without the Reinhardt there, the team was doomed. But
No
really,
pun
really back and
intended with
forth
the
play.
Doomfist, but
It really was not intended. But we're going to the Garden phase. We're seeing more triple tank out of New York
dangerous composition to go with on Garden phase. Particularly, like, if this was Shadowburn, and you would know they would be running the Pharah.
But see, this is how they get them though, and how the casters pointed out, we have not seen EQO Pharah, and this is why I like this from the Philadelphia Fusion. You're doing what your opponent doesn't expect. That gives you the advantage. So the 3-1-2 Junkrat coming out into a 2-2-2 Pharah Tracer. What's gonna shoot the Pharah?
No one was
going to hit Pharah?
I don't think any of them even realized that there was a window that Pharah could fire through, because we saw from the view of the player's perspective, and I don't think he took like anything more than 50 damage at most before he built a barrage and unleashed it for 2 kills and good damage out on point and secured that first fight.
Notes here. There was a random stat that was given out. Libero had 16 of the 17 final blows for the Excelsior at this point on the map.
If that's true, that's incredible.
I must have misheard and wrote that down.
I'll go. I won't get the exact stat, but I'll take a look. But keep on going.
Really, you talk about the Pharah. It was the massive barrage that came through. Because at first I'm thinking, okay, the Excelsior were handling it fairly well, and then the first fight, barrage comes up, justice rain from above, and they were done. And honestly, do we have to go over more? On this third map, I don't think so.
They managed to hold on point from there, essentially.
They made switches, right? They had Libero go to the Pharah. They had Sabobi go to the Tracer. I was really expecting Libero to go Soldier, but they wanted to go for the Pharah v Pharah fight. It didn't work out, and this was a dominant win for the Fusion. 100-0 on the deciding map of Lijiang. It's match point now.
Yeah, and you've got to be feeling really good if you're Fusion. You've been riding the high of your previous win. You're up 2-0, Jax. You're feeling good. Let's talk about Volskaya, though. We're going to try and condense things, Jax. We're going long already.
You don't have to Volskaya is condensed by the nature of how it played out.
That's how. Listen, when you get only 3 illuminations for the entire map, Jax, that's how condensed things will be. Horrible play coming out of Fusion here. I think this is where the stamina is looking like there's a bit of a problem.
I have questions here because EQO playing the Widowmaker, I wasn't a fan of his Widow against the Spitfire, and now he's coming out again with Widowmaker here. When the first 2 fights of their attack starts with him being killed by Libero in a Widow v Widow fight, you've got to put it down, man. Put the Widowmaker down. At 2 minutes, we have a terrible transcendence from Boombox. Was it 56.1%? How do they go from such a dominant performance, on King of the Hill, to this here on 2CP? So whatever
nerves, excitement, stamina, right? So, all those things I think coming into it, Jax. Those things.
You think the pressure's there? Like, it's match point. They're about to have back-to-back upsets on the 2 best teams, not just of the stage, but of the first 2 stages in the league overall. The Korean powerhouses, the juggernauts, are getting brought down here.
They had the opportunity here, right? And the opportunity's not gone just because you lose Volskaya, but it's the way that they lose Volskaya here that's the issue for me.
Lepalose, 2.5 minutes on Widow, did nothing. Switches to Genji for the last 90 seconds. Doesn't even get Dragon Blade in 90 seconds. EQO,
which is formerly one of the players that
he's supposed to build it so quickly, right?
I mean, this is a composition that NYXL were running, though, didn't allow for it to build quickly. As well, Boombox getting caught early here. Listen, you're starting to play loose. The positional advantages, the tightness you had previously, starting to come apart here for Fusion. Okay. You don't capture a point. Easy it for Libero to find 2 picks on their attack and set up the easy win.
Neptuno.
Done. You're done. You're done on A point. You need to at least get to B point, even if you lose a map, because you can't drop momentum like this, where you were going uphill and then there's a cliff, and this is a cliff right here on Volskaya. Jax, let's talk about Hollywood. Hollywood, 4th map in the pool here. Fusion.
To point out, Janus in for Mano now. They made they make this change often, you see.
Yeah.
I wish I knew why. It's just interesting how they bring in for the hybrid, right? They bring in Janus. I'm like, Mano is a fantastic take. What does Janice bring here that Mano doesn't have? I don't know. I don't
The
know. It's
question
just
is, do you
it's
feel there's much
curious.
of a drop off with Janice? Like
No.
I don't either. But this is why I think like maybe if Mano's a shot caller regular, but Janice is also a decent one, you bring him in for a different map type and you release some of the pressure off of Mano having to always do it. Either way, we can talk about coaching stuff after Jax. Let's talk about the game here, where Fusion spot the Orisa Junkrat immediately off the
Yeah.
start, switch to a 3-1-2 Widow, but it's still Libero getting work done on the Junkrat.
So they started out with a 2-2 Tracer Widow. They make the switch to 3-1-2 Widow. EQO went to the Roadhog.
Yep.
So after the first fight, it says here, Carpe drops the Widow to go McCree, and EQO goes to the Diva. So they're not exactly certain how to deal with this 3-1-2 Junkrat. They're making multiple switches. I like it because on Volskaya they sat with the same comp that did nothing for 4 minutes, and now
Jax, what I'm
trying different
disappointed in though is that they did not immediately switch to the Farah off the start. That is what I'm disappointed most about. They just showed that they could beat the 3-1-2 Junkrat on Lijiang Tower Garden stage with using the Farah strat, and it destroyed NYXL.
What's Widow supposed to do here?
Yeah,
like, who's she supposed to? I mean, 3-1-2
with Orisa,
Widow,
with the Orisa shield,
and
Jax.
then into a McCree. Like McCree less effective than Widow.
Yeah, I think this is the fatigue getting to them a little bit, like and the shot calling
here. I think, man, they're nervous.
They see it within their sights, I think, and mentally it's causing them to lose.
That they had it in their sights. You really said that, Lepalose.
I did.
Let's see, 47% now. The Fusion come out. Terrible graviton again, by the way. I'm just gonna put. I had to put that out there, man.
It came out. It came out. They had like a person or two in it. Did not get kills. Support also out on the side of NYXL, and they managed to turn what could have been a hold into, or sorry, could have been a captured into a hold. But I mean,
then 40 left. You have Fraggy with the fatty shot. You know I like my fatty shotters, man. I love it. Carpe gets a 2K Deadeye, and that gets them through the door with 3 minutes and 30 seconds. 3 minutes and 37 seconds to push the second.
Not as much time as you would like, Jax, but still plenty of time. But, you know, Sabalbi and Libero on his Genji finding work in the second phase here. And as well, Jonak finally starting to light up the feed like we're used to.
Yeah.
Getting Fusion into a bad spot. Not enough out of them here in the second phase to get
it's
too far.
Interesting switches all around. We had Sabobi dropping the Roadhog for Tracer. Carpe dropped his McCree for Widow. Libero drops his Junkrat to go counter Widow. And from there, you know, you kind of end up in that Widow fight as to who's going to get the picks, whose Tracer is going to be able to harass more. And I think, well, I guess I'll get into that in a minute here. But you'll notice, Lep, we're talking about Sabobi, Libero, Carpe. Where is EQO?
EQO a little bit quiet. Jax, let's talk about the NYXL attack a little bit, though.
Was at 1 point in 99.86 meters that they had. It's rough,
like,
man.
Yeah, it's not far. You need to get into the third phase at this level if you want to take on the top teams. Not doing that Fusion. It's not a surprise then. Initial hold for Fusion, very nice on their defense when they come out very aggressively.
3-1-2 Widow again with the Widow. Wow. Okay.
But listen, you know, second fight, Sabalbi pulse bomb onto Fraggy, good push onto A. Alt value is good for NYXL. Capture A, very easy from there. Fusion still breaking apart here. Their positional play breaking down allows NYXL to find picks when they need them. From there, cleanup is easy to do. They easily make the distance here, Jax, to get the 2-1 on Hollywood, forcing
2 minutes and 15 seconds in the time bank as they capped it out. The drop off is too big here from EQO. I'm sorry. I go. So we started out with Route 66. We had Snillo. You take that into Lijiang, where EQO kind of held his own. He had that fantastic round on the Farah. Then you go to Volskaya, right? Complete disappearance by EQO. The man is gone. Yeah. He's on a break somewhere. And from there we go into Hollywood, and he is still on this break because Carpe, I think Carpe did the best that he could. I think he was under tremendous pressure, and not just on the map, but with the way things were playing out here, and with EQO disappearing, that's just even more on him, especially as the Widow. And I know he's got the land experience. You know, he's a 180K player, right? He's making the money. He wants the big bucks. These are the situations where he's got to earn it. I think they asked for too much from him. I think he needed help. I'm looking at their attack, right? Boombox, questionable positioning for me. Why do I say questionable? In the final 2 fights, who dies first? The Zenyatta. In the final fight, he gets headshot by the enemy Widowmaker. He had Transcendence. That can't happen. I'm sorry. You're Zen with Transcendence going into the final fight of overtime. You cannot die to enemy Widow. You can't. You can't be sticking the big dome out there because, oh, hey, what? You gonna hit Q fast enough to a headshot? Do we have to go back to the animated short when Zenyatta got blasted by Widow? What happened then? Nothing. He died. So here, the team overall letting them down. Because like I said, I feel like Carpe did his job here. What happened to Fraggy, Lepalose? We gave Fraggy all this credit in the series against Spitfire, against the first 2 maps. What happened to Fraggy? Where's he at?
We meant, like I mentioned, position breaking down, but this is a result of it. Each of their players no longer performing well adds up to like a huge issue for their team, right? Because if you're not working well and the teamwork's not there, everybody suddenly becomes silent and it doesn't look good. And this is the fusion that we've seen. When things aren't working well, they look bad, and this is exactly what's happened now on Volskaya and on Hollywood. And you're concerned heading into Map 5, which is Gibraltar. Jax, maybe they're satiated a little bit, those worries, by the fusion attack on a quick A capture here on Gibraltar.
2-2-2. Genji Tracer from both sides here. We've seen so much Widow that we get to a watch point. I'm saying, is there really no Widow?
Yeah, it's sort of surprising.
I don't know if Carpe is a little gun shy, or the Excelsior wanted to fall back on their anti-Widow strat that doesn't involve a Widow of their own. I was surprised to see no Widow from either side. I was even more surprised to see no defense at all on first point, basically, from the Excelsior. 5 minutes and 30 seconds for the Fusion to push the second point.
Yeah, and concerning too, when the Fusion win the second fight as well, which is early in the hangar phase, push right up to the distance. If you're an NYXL fan, you're concerned, but listen, Jonak, you got Jonak on your side, and you find 2 kills in the next fight. Both of them pretty key. One Carpe, one on Boombox.
The payload was 1.8 meters away when Jonak pops off, as you said. And for me, it's the people you expect to step up when they need it. When it's Game 5 of the playoff championship, and you've got to get a hold. You get Jay Jonak gets 2. Libero gets 2 with the blade. That leaves Sabobi clear for the cleanup. And as Tracer, he loves easy cleanup. That's what they've got here. It went from 5 minutes and 30 seconds to push the second point, Lepalose, to what? An overtime push? Overtime? Before they cap second?
Yeah, it was
5 minutes and 30 seconds gone. It was 1.8 meters away.
It was incredibly close, but hard. Hangar phase incredibly hard to enter on, and you have Jonak that can spam those right clicks. Now, you're in a difficult spot if you're Fusion. You mentioned EKO, Jax. Here, EKO coming through. Key clutch 2-kill Dragon Blade on supports for a crazy fight that continued after it, but Fusion barely enough to hold off the NYXL return and capture that in OT. There's a lot of stuff that happened in that fight, Jax, but I'm just going to say, like, anytime you get the supports down.
That leaves them with 90 seconds to push the distance.
Yeah,
that's only second point. They still got to get to the third. Third is not easy to get through either, man.
It's certainly not when Libero returns with a 2-kill Dragon Blade of his own early in third, and then following fight you have Sabalbi shutting down the Fusion supports again.
You're done. So they had Fusion. 90 seconds, right? 50 seconds is when Libero gets both supports. 15 seconds is when Sabolbi gets both supports at the cost of his own life. However, the Excel keep up the pressure, right? They're there. The revive is in, so Sabolbi, who died, is back up. They don't even make it to trigger overtime because the pressure is in their face.
Yeah.
2 points and 50.53 meters. Close, but not quite.
Definitely great defense there.
Not even close, because that 50 meters that's not even to the hill.
Yeah,
to the top of the hill.
It's not even on the corner there of third. So
yikes.
Very doable distance. I mean, obviously the hangar phase can still go Fusion's way or the A point if you do things well.
Do we see Widow now?
We do
from
see Liberal.
defense
We
here.
see Liberal on the Widow on attack here, but
No Carpe Widow.
Carpe not feeling the Widow against
222
NYXL here.
Genji Tracer. I started out by saying I expected Widowmaker on Watchpoint. I really, really thought Carpe would go Widowmaker here because I don't see how if it's a straight up 2-2 Genji Tracer at this point, I don't see how they beat the New York XL. I don't.
Maybe this is the pressure of Sabalbi and trying to shut him down coming through, and
This is interesting.
having only Carpe there to do that, and not EKO that you can have do that. Anyways, it doesn't work. Not with Mano getting 3 kills and
Yeah.
Sabalbi getting a pulse bomb onto Neptuno for an 8-point attack. That's immediately. That second fight, Jax. So they did hold that first fight. That was
slower.
Good.
Yeah. I was gonna say it was 5 minutes and 30 seconds for the Fusion to push second. It's 4 minutes and 15 seconds for the Excelsior. So they're over a minute behind right now. So good. I mean, the Fusion are buying that time that they need. So okay. I'm looking for the positives here.
Yeah, and the positives continue happening for Fusion though in the second phase, where Sabalbi a little too aggressive gets caught out actually. Able to get the hold before the cart even gets through the door. So it's sort of like a 0.1, 0.5 kind of a hold here because they find that early hold. 3-kill Nano Dragon Blade shuts down NYXL on the side of Fusion with EKO doing that. So you like to see the shutdown using those ults when you use them. Like you want to see value like that. Does work there again for another hold. But then Mano clearing off the top of the shuttle, huge play in order to shut out the position for your Ana and Zen having a little extra coverage.
The Excelsior made the changes. Libero switched off the Widow to the Genji. Sabolbi did Sabolbi-like things when he has Mano making space. That means Sabolbi is free to roam and do what he wants best, which is what you don't want if you're a Fusion fan. And what you don't want, Lepalose, is for the Excelsior to have 3 minutes to push the payload 51 meters.
Yeah, that's not ideal. The supports on the side of Fusion here did everything they could. They had the nano boost onto Boombox prior to that point, right?
Yeah.
Like, and Mano dies because of it, but still 2 kills. Dragon Blade coming out there for Libero, and the stagger onto Neptuno at that. You're in trouble if you're.
Hey, Carpe goes Widow for final third.
Now
I get my Widow at last.
Too late, I think. Libero finding pick on Poco after Res and before the remake happens. Jax, that's all NYXL need. They roll through. They take
seconds.
They take the reverse
sweep.
Minutes.
They had 2 minutes and 1 second left when they cap it out.
This incredible win by NYXL to come back. Obviously, we can asterisk all the reasons why Fusion had trouble, but ultimately it was a good victory for them to come back from behind in order to take the win. They've got to be feeling good, and they got the victory this time around, Jax. They got the stage 2 champion and the extra money.
Fantastic win for the Excelsior. Fantastic that they came from behind to do it. They did it without the big boss, who is going through some emotional problems. I hope he gets some help. He's able to make it through, because I want to see Pine in these games, right?
The pressure situations.
And here's the deal: even if you put Pine aside, I was watching this and I'm saying to myself, they're very fortunate, and by there I mean everyone else in the Overwatch League is fortunate that Flower is not 18, because if Flower is 18, he's on the Widowmaker, and Flower is the best Widow that they do. I take you back to the World Cup against USA. What happened to Team USA on Hanamura Lepalose? They got widowed is what happened. And if you're going to put Flower and Sabolbi together with Jay Jonak and the tanks that they have, teams are going to get rocked. And the problem now, though, if I'm the Philadelphia Fusion, is they had the advantage in the Widow fight. Where they didn't have the advantage is that second DPS, and it's why I don't know how to phrase it. So maybe you'll pick up on where I'm going at it. But I think they would have been better off with Carpe and Snillo. And if not Carpe and Snillo, because of the limited hero pools, then one, Snillo has to expand beyond Tracer. And I don't know if he has it or not, Carpe might need to work on his Genji play. Snillo, I think, would have been the better fit here because his Tracer is so good. I'm looking at EQO here, and outside of the fair play that he had on Li Zhang, And the other maps here, EQO, I'm sorry, was a letdown.
Yeah.
Okay, he had that beautiful nano dragon blade, but who cares? I'm sorry. He pressed Q with a nano boost. That's expected.
Yeah.
Um,
He
for me,
definitely was quieter than you expected. I go back to Hollywood though. I think if he came out on the fair on that first attack once they realized what the composition was, he could have made a difference there. But that might have been a team decision, not his decision, right? To go to the 3-1-2 of their own.
I hope it was a team decision. It's just I was looking at this and I'm saying, what does Philly do different here? And I suppose I'm leaning towards Snillo because from
Grass
every time
is
I saw
greener
Snillo,
though,
it was in
Jax.
specific situations, so
Yeah.
it's a bit of a bias there.
And he
Because
got
he,
to
he came out
practice that one map like very specifically, right?
it was
So
a specific strat here, but it was how well he played the Tracer, man.
yeah,
His positioning, because at times when they moved Carpe to the Widow, right, and they had to play Tracer, that put EQ on Tracer. His Tracer is not there. I'm sorry, his Tracer is not there. And I guess what I'm getting at is Carpe on the Widow was their advantage in this series. And it would have forced the Excelsior to either counter Widow with the Widow or counter Widow with their anti-Widow strat, which is hard to pull off. It's not the easiest thing in the world to send, your Genji, your Tracer, and your Winston at the Widow and not have them die if she's protected. They did it against Soul, right? But I think it's really hard to pull that off. And I often talk to you on this show about the Widow v Widow being almost too important at times. I think it's why the Gladiators suffered. I think it's why Soul lost against the Houston Outlaws in that game, because Linkser just played out of his mind and beat Fleta in the Widow v Widow game. And that's why I say Carpe was their greatest advantage, because I think Carpe
yeah,
is a better Widow than any two that the XL could put out.
yeah.
But the drop off is so huge if you take Carpe off of the Tracer. And to make up for that, you need Snillo to pay the Tracer.
Right now,
But
yeah, that's
then, if you're forced to flex off of Widow Tracer, then you're looking at it where EQO might be better. And so,
there's a lot of opportunities.
EQO is here.
Yeah.
If you take the Genji out, and we saw his fair for this one map, let's be honest now. If you take the Genji away from EQO, is he a starter DPS in Overwatch League?
I mean,
Did you like his Roadhog?
I did not. No, I mean he did acceptable, but he wasn't of libero standard flex, right? Like,
yes,
I'll put it that way. Snillo had a excellent first round. I'm not sure if he's ready to come in. I don't think the coach.
You don't think he's full time yet?
I don't think he's full time yet. I don't, and that's why you didn't see him. Although that said, Jax, I think there are coaching things that they could have done in order to try and right the ship here. I don't think, like, you want to protect against the reverse sweep, right, Jackson? You've had a long day. I don't think keeping in your A team on map 4 was the right decision. You needed those guys to get a rest and calm themselves and collect themselves after they got destroyed on Volskaya, right? Like, I personally think Hollywood, you switch your lineup out completely to get them practice and prepare for Game 5. Because, NYXL have to be in that game and thinking, and they don't have time to prepare for your Game 5, right? So you take that time out, essentially.
At Hollywood, because I'm looking at Hollywood as a map, and I'm saying Tracer is viable on Hollywood in all stages. And if she's viable in all,
You put Snillo and Shadowburn in.
You take Carpe out as well, Lepalose. You go Snillo Shadowburn. I was gonna say Snillo Carpe. Wow.
You absolutely pull a fast one on NYXL on map 4.
Shadowburn's cold.
You put in all you're giving up a map, but you're trying to prepare yourself. Like, you've had a long day. Your nerves are running high.
That's big.
I mean, Jax, look how badly they performed on Volskaya. Do you think they're ready for Hollywood?
I say it's big. I like Shadowburn because he's cold. Shadowburn is the ice cold. If you look at the guy, he's always collected. He's never, he's always on point. So I think Shadowburn can come in. Wow,
it's a huge coaching decision to make. But
see, I was thinking Snillo Carpe. You want to make the full switch
on map 4, so that you bring all your guys out. You have the 20 minutes or 30 minutes to discuss what you're going to do for map 5 with those guys and prepare them.
Ooh,
because
that is
and not only that, NYXL have to get used to the people that you put in, which play differently, right? So they
Shadowburn and Ikuo are very different Genjis.
exactly right. So you want to throw the curveball, even like you might be giving up map 4,
Here's the
sure,
thing.
right? But
Plus, because I'm thinking in context of the Widow now. Shadowburn showed he can flex to the Widow, and because yes, liberal at times win the Widow fight against Carpe. I don't place Sabobi or Libero as top tier Widows. I really don't. I really don't think either one of them is. They're good, right? They're an okay professional Widowmaker, but that's like saying Surefour is an okay professional Widowmaker. I don't think either one of the options that the XL had would have been a defining factor. And so this is why I'm thinking the Shadow Burn could work, because the only downside you have if you go Snillo Shadow Burn
and I'm
is
talking
who plays the
map
Widow.
4. I'm talking map 4,
Right.
not map 5, right? So
No,
the
but
the
I mean,
purpose is
even
not
map
necessarily
4
to win map 4. It's to
warm them up for
it's
5.
it's yeah, it's to prepare your
That's
members for
spicy.
5, like to cool them down from from getting destroyed on
You can go
Volskaya.
Genji Tracer on Hollywood and Watchpoint.
Yeah.
That's perfectly viable for both.
Well, I'm not saying you
Oh,
warm them up for map 5 either, though. I'm just
right.
saying, you put them in on map 4. Like even if you bring in your regular lineup for map 5, you want the time out for your guys so that you can prepare them for map 5. And map 4, you're forcing NYXL to switch their thought patterns away from what they're used to.
So you're saying you might go for Shadowburn Snillo on Hollywood, but for map 5, do you come back with Carpe EQO?
Yeah, absolutely. Like now that you sat them down, you had
Lepalose
a
with
little
those
talk with
big
them.
coaching changes.
I'm just saying,
My
like, things to do.
dude.
Like, because, like, look at it. You lost momentum so badly in Volskaya, right? Okay,
They
so
did. That was a disaster.
let's talk
I
about this in another form, though, right? Like, because we're talking theoretical. Like,
Yeah.
here, if you didn't go up 2-0, I wouldn't make that decision, right?
Right.
But because you went up 2-0 and then you lost a map so badly, or it looked like you were going to lose a map so badly, that's when you had to make that kind of a decision, right? If you didn't lose momentum so badly, like Volskaya was a really close map and your guys were still performing at a high level on that first round, you wouldn't make that decision either, right? But because you lost so much momentum, because you had the long day already, that's why you should make the decision that I'm suggesting.
I like that, and also I like it because one thing that I've noticed with the Korean teams is how much of their performance comes from their preparation. And there's no way for them to have been prepared for Shadowburn Snillo, Genji Tracer. And not necessarily Genji Tracer. Shadowburn can flex to any number of heroes. We've seen him on the Fair, we've seen him on his Junkrat. Not just projectile, but he's capable of pulling out a soldier. Maybe not, at tier 1 level, but well enough. And so you're saying you make it just to throw the Excelsior off their game.
Well, not just that, right? It's two pronged, right? The most important thing is to get your A team cooled off a little bit, and like you mentally give them a break from.
So after the terrible Volskaya,
Yeah.
you want to settle. I mean, maybe not Carpe, specifically EQO, who was a disaster.
Yes, yeah. The whole team, as much as the team that you
Yeah.
can pull off from the main line, you can.
Right,
You
right,
sit them
right.
down and you prepare for map 5 in those 30 minutes, right? That's an
That's
incredible amount of time
That's
to sit down and talk about what strategies you're going to run, and get the thought process happening. Whereas NYXL still have to win map 4, so they can't
Right.
they don't have the
can't back
time.
off.
Yeah,
Okay.
they have to stay hot there. And yeah, sure, you may not win map 4, but you also might, because they probably have no preparation. Like you might have no preparation, but your guys are still feeling like you put in guys that
They're
are
still a team. Yeah.
they saw the
knows what
loss,
to do.
but they have the momentum from the win earlier in the day and the 2-0 momentum, right? So they have a different feeling about it than the guys that just lost Volskaya, right? Because they still see the goalpost, right? They're not as desperate, but they are still driven. And that's why you want to make the change. It's two-pronged, right? Because you're preparing your A team for the final push, and you're giving your B team a chance there to go and throw off the other team from their game too, right? Because you don't enter there and on the side of NYXL, all of a sudden you don't know what's coming at you. Like, I'm sorry, you do not prepare for all of a sudden a completely new composition. Like, they might not know what they're doing, but
You've
you
never
don't
seen
know what they're doing.
Snillo outside of Route 66.
And you wouldn't see
literally have not
Snillo
seen him.
and Shadowburn together and what they were going to run. And,
Right.
maybe they didn't know exactly what they were going to run if you're a coach either. But, like, I'm just saying, you need to think about this if you're coaching. and you have like
That's a
your
risk.
plan.
Listen,
It is a risk.
I like it. You know me. I came in thinking perhaps you make the switch for EQO for Snillo. Lepalose took
No.
it a step further. People, hit him up at Lepalose on Twitter, at JaxJax_Blake on Twitter, at OW Rundown.
Yeah.
Fantastic performance by the New York Excelsior
By
to come
Fusion
back,
too,
right?
though. Huge work by Fusion on the day to win
is.
against Spitfire.
It is.
Go up 2-0.
That's 25,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's $100,000 for the Excelsior. That's 25. You know, Chef Heidi can go. That's why they could afford the lobster. Did you see? She had a just trays of lobsters, man, on the Twitter. It's not cheap, Lepalose.
It's definitely not cheap, Jax. We are pretty cheap here. Our time is pretty cheap, but I think we spent it all up.
Okay, stage 2. Would you say stage 2 better than stage 1?
Overall, yeah, I'd say so. I mean, listen, the Mercy Meta was not my favorite because it added to the randomness of fights because it became more about how many reses you could get out in a fight and less about positional play and awareness because you had so much more buffer. Now, stage 2, we see dive back, yes, but punishing mistakes is a lot more serious than stage 2. I like that more because it makes you think more about the game. We will be returning on Sunday, though, Jax, to think about the game more.
This was supposed to be a 60-minute podcast for the playoffs. We're at 1 hour and 35 minutes. I look in chat here. The clock guy, he is fired. We haven't had a clock in 1 hour and a half. It's been 90 minutes since we had a clock update from our clock guy in chat. He is fired, man.
Yeah.
My goodness.
I'll revoke all paychecks to the clock guy, Jax, as much as Mosaic has revoked their paychecks to their players.
We're definitely cutting this guy's pay for next week because next week we definitely need a clock because there's no Overwatch League. We're gonna do some kind of rundown.
We'll be doing rundown of contender stuff, but not in depth. No, and some preview
we'll have
though.
Full coverage next week, people. Next week,
preview week
literally might be the first hour-long podcast.
Good luck, though. We're going to be talking about the preview of Stage 3. That's it for us now. Jax, are you ready for the music? I'm ready for the music. I'm playing the music. I figure if I'm silent long enough, Jax will eventually start talking.
I thought I was